I think USC has a prime opportunity. These guys, it's not just talk anymore. You're going to be able to see Entz and Lynn, and Riley show what this defense, because Riley said, don't let anyone say, Riley literally said, I'm glad they got him pissed off. Because he said, look, everything I do from now on is about the defense. Man, that was a stupid move, whoever wanted to get that guy pissed off and say he doesn't care about the defense. Because he's clearly shown in the offseason. He continues to show it right now. Now, what really matters is what it looks like on the field.
My counterpoint to that would be, really, he needed somebody else to tell him that he needed to jump on that defense and get it corrected?
No, I'm not saying he didn't know about it. I'm saying someone really pissed him off. Yeah, I mean, listen, we're all human beings. I know he knew he knew he had to fix it. I think the circumstances, I would love to. Remember the question? I want to know why he brought Grinch. I want to know why he hung on to him for the year. That's the huge anomaly in all of this. That's the weird thing. It doesn't fizz why he brought Grinch and why he stayed with Grinch. But I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about the past anymore. I'm talking about now. And we can't talk about now because we haven't seen on the field. This year, we're going to see, I'm going to call it, hit Riley's defense. Because this is going to be Riley's defense, and he's either going to be celebrated or crucified, right or wrong, by year one. Which, again, in traditional standards, do you hammer a defensive staff in the very first season? Usually there's onboarding going on. There's a lot happening. So, but I think regardless of the situation, either he's going to be heralded as the greatest thing in the world, or he's going to be crucified because oh, see, look, the defense wasn't great, so it's more Lincoln Riley.
And I think the football gods, like you just said, we will know on opening night. Not that that's going to dictate the season, but it's not Utah State, and then it's not an Ohio State schedule this year, where we're not going to know what they've got for 5 or 6 weeks until really they go to Oregon. USC, thank you. I've always respected USC. You schedule tough. Thank you for giving us quality football. It's Notre Dame and it's somebody else almost every season. Thank you for doing that, USC. And now you may play in the toughest conference in college football in addition to that. So I've always acknowledged USC's recruiting or their scheduling efforts in that manner.
Jog my memory, Mark. So for instance, I'm just saying, when Jim Knowles came in from Ohio State, was Ohio State's defense, did they just take off right away from game one?
No.
Were they just killing it? It took a little time, right? And
yes.
What do we usually say? New scheme. Players got to learn a new scheme. Got to give them a little time. What I'm saying to you and everyone out in the audience right now, Lincoln Riley and Danton Lynn, mark my words right now, will not be afforded that same conventional wisdom. Just get ready for it. Promise you that will not be the case. But anyway, I hope they kick ass, because then we don't got to hear any of it.
Yeah, but we were talking about not one of the worst defenses in the country. We were talking about taking like a number 40 defense and making them a top 10 defense, not taking a 110 defense and making them respectable.
Oh, this will be a respectable defense, period. That's a fact.
The other nuance here is that the Ohio State struggles on defense still coexisted with the typical 11-win season. USC, really stepped in a ditch and lost 5. So, Ohio State's offense, C.J. Stroud was able to cover up the limitations of the Knowles defense, and Ohio State was still, in that 11-win neighborhood. Wasn't the same for USC. So that's why USC gets less of a grace period.
Or maybe the fact that they've just been rolling and recruiting for well over a decade now, and Lincoln Riley took over in year 2, a completely empty offensive line room that he was trying to cobble together through the portal. Yeah, we're not talking about 2 same roster. That's another faux pas a lot of people make. Yes, it's not just, it was just the CJ was making that happen. It was the entire team and the talent they had in the cupboard when you had Knowles come in the door on both sides of the ball. And that was not present at USC last year. Let's be real. You guys want to argue? We could argue, but that's pretty clear. I think it's evident.
Yeah, Lincoln Riley took over the worst USC team I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
The 2022 team was, I can't think of any USC team that came close to that.
Yeah, no, nor can I.
Well, the the 1957 under Don Clark.
We weren't around for that, Matt. So we can only go off a reference, the past couple of decades when we've been watching football, But yeah.
But
folks, somebody asked me to go ahead, man.
Go ahead. Well, no. Mark, if there was a 1-minute segment to take from our show on Friday night when things got really, really spicy, it was when Tim and I talked about Lincoln Riley saying at Big Ten Media Days, USC's been playing catch up. And, Tim mentioned, hey, I want a coach that's going to tell the absolute truth. And my point, and I didn't get to flesh this out as fully as I would have liked on Friday, so I'm going to flesh it out now. My point is that you don't have to lie, okay? But you don't have to publicly broadcast or share every single accurate thought or evaluation in your head. Yes, Lincoln Riley inherited an absolute mess from Clay Helton. No disagreement with Lincoln Riley. No disagreement with Tim Prangley on that point. But, in terms of, media skepticism, and again, I have said that the media's specific take that Lincoln Riley doesn't take defense seriously right now, that's BS. Very much disagree with that. Like, you have to give the guy credit for looking at his situation and pivoting and hiring some real adults in the room. Like, that's taking defense seriously. But whether you actually get follow through, whether you actually get accountability, like if I was going to criticize Lincoln Riley as a national, general college football media figure, that's the angle I take. Will there be accountability? We have to see it on the field. Like, that would be my general attitude. But the idea that, it doesn't matter that Lincoln Riley hired Danton Lynn, Coach Henney, Woof Woof, Matt Entz, Doug Belk, the idea that those moves don't matter, that's not being fair. That's not being reasonable. That's not giving a person a fair shake. All right. But when we talk about Lincoln Riley saying USC's playing catch up at Big Ten Media Days, he didn't have to say it, but he did. It's not about a coach should lie, but you don't have to tell everything. You don't have to reveal everything that you possibly can. So it's not so much a battle between telling the truth and not telling the truth. It's a battle between telling 100 full truths and just telling a few select truths. Because if I'm a national media person, am I interested in wanting to hear Lincoln Riley tell a sob story about just how poor and way behind the curve he is and just how rough it is at USC with that mega salary, the digs, the beautiful weather, everything that USC has to sell itself? I mean, look, if I'm a writer for the Indianapolis Star or the Fort Wayne Gazette, am I interested in that? Let's be real, I'm not. So, I think Lincoln Riley does get a raw deal on certain levels, but he didn't have to say, he didn't have to play the 10-inch violin and say, well, we're playing catch up here in year 3 at USC. There are things about Lincoln Riley that will rub people the wrong way, and that was certainly one of them, and he didn't have to go down that route. Tim, your rebuttal.
Let me respond. Lincoln Riley is not talking about this year, this second. That's where people are getting this wrong. Everyone's taking his words out of context. He's saying, and by the way, he says also, I just love this. You were saying, he said he was going to the Mecca college football. They had everything there. Go back and listen to his press conference. He says, I like the alignment. I think we can get there. I want to make this the Mecca. He's not, and by the way, he's not saying at this moment, in this second, whatever, they've been building it. It's not like he's saying right now we're starting all over, everything's fresh. He's saying we've done a lot of work to get us where we are right now today, but I don't have a magic wand that can give me the roster that the elite programs have been building for 5, 6, 8, 10 years and walk in here and say, this is what we're going to do, because USC's NIL was woefully behind. Anybody wants to say that's fine. USC throughout the decades, whether it be going after Marv Goo for the guys selling their tickets way back in the 80s to Barry SC because we were rolling through the 70s, or if it was what the bull crap they pulled with the whole Bush investigation. And anyone that wants to come at me with that one as well, we'll have a conversation. It was bullshit to take USC down. So if you wonder why USC is a bit hesitant to push, and I'll use that word lightly in quotes. The guys, they were flat out universities that were talking about great NIL programs that were laughing at the NCAA rules, where some programs were following the rules to the letter of law, USC and others were just ignoring them. Tennessee and fill in your blanks. So that had to be taken care of. And now finally USC is saying, okay, we're going to start giving money to high school kids. These guys have been doing that for years, even before NIL. And now USC says, we're going to do that. We're going to catch up to what everyone's doing. And when we do start doing that, my question to both of you on the panel, you don't think SC can compete with anybody in the Big Ten if that is the case and they have their NIL going the same way these other programs are you guys going to sit here and tell me that, nah, USC can't compete with Oregon and Michigan and Ohio State? What are we, crazy here? No, that's exactly what he said. He said, I'm not going to put my program behind anybody else. And quite frankly, history has shown it. If USC is serious about football, we can compete. We are not behind anybody when it comes to football. And I'll stand by that. And he wasn't complaining about this season or saying, oh, this is why in year 3, we're starting over. He's not saying we're starting over, Matt. He's saying we're catching up because they haven't caught up yet. Well, they had 2 years. They've had 2 years. This is year 3. He's been here 2 years. It does take longer than 2 years to turn around a program with facilities, NIL, and rosters, especially on the lines.
Just for the sake of clarity, I didn't say he said he was starting over. I noted that he said he was playing catch up. So just to be clear, like I reported, he said he's playing catch up, not that he was starting over.
And he is.
I want to be clear.
Are they playing catch up on the roster? They wouldn't disagree. Okay. Do either one of you disagree he's playing catch up on rosters? Yes or no?
Yes, and Tim, you said it wasn't about this season, but it is this season. It's the present moment. Like USC is playing catch up, and that is what Lincoln Riley said at Big Ten Media Days. No,
but I'm saying it's not. They're playing catch up. It's not that they started playing catch up. I want to make that point clear. A lot of people try to make it seem like in year 3 he's trying to do some reset. No, where they are right now is leap years ahead of where they were 2 years ago when he got here. That's what he's saying, and everyone took that little comment he made and ran with it and made it whatever they wanted to make of it. But if you listen to his exact words and don't read into it, it was very clear that he was saying, hey, look, when I got here, we're playing catch up. We complain all the time about coaches not being transparent. I'm so glad I didn't go to media days. Mark, you warned me. They don't tell you anything, right? But Lincoln Riley came actually out and was being candid. And now what does the mainstream media do? They crucify him and try to read into all of his words. Listen to his exact words. We were behind. We're playing catch up. If it takes 1 year or 2 years, let's see where he is at the end of this year after third year. He hasn't had 3 years. He's had 2 years. And they're still trying to catch up roster-wise, which we're talking defensive line, offensive line, what Helton left him. Yeah, it's going to take at least 2 years to catch up. This will be a big year. There should be some big change on the defensive offensive line. Let's see if we see it.
Let's also understand that this is the most advantageous era in the history of college football to play catch up. You have more opportunity, of course, through the transfer portal than you would have circa 2000 and 2020 and before.
You can do that you can't wholesale, as we saw last year on the offensive line. You can't rebuild the right side of your offensive line through the portal. I mean, you can piecemeal it. You can bring some stuff, but you can't bring depth and quality offensive line play. Well, I shouldn't say you can't. They were unable to last year. And is there a case of someone bringing in significant amount of an offensive line and making it work? I think that's just the one position where, Lincoln Riley's been very successful at bringing in, wide receivers and a quarterback and running backs, right? Linebackers. It's been successful on that level. Where it hasn't, where we saw this season, nothing changed on the defense, like materially. But what changed was the offensive line wasn't what it was in 2022, and that led to a bunch of losses. Specifically UCLA and Notre Dame.